invite Professor Indranath Chaudhuri first to initiate the discussion on this book.
It is a privilege for me to make a short presentation under the chairmanship of Professor Kamleshnath Tripathi, one of the very respected Indology scholar of this country, whom I have the highest respect in my mind. I read the book sent to me by Mr. Alvaro, and he asked me to participate in the discussion. And I read the book. I did not read it in parts, because Mr. Malhotra sent me some videos, and I saw a video of a program, similar program, in Science Institute in Bangalore, where there were two very important distinguished speakers, Roden and Pai. Roden is, I think, Professor Emeritus in the Science Institute, and he was my trustee member of IGNCA when I was the member secretary. And also Pai was a trustee member of Infosys. They spoke about the book, but they just picked up certain, points from the book, certain terms from the book, and they made a brilliant presentation, no doubt about it, which I did not like. I thought that the book should be read, and I read the book. Yesterday, Dr. Sajay Kumar came to my room. I came yesterday from Delhi, and he requested me that if I can code mix two languages, the codes of two languages, and make a presentation both in English and Hindi. I thought that it should be done, particularly in BHU, where we have a large number of students who really enjoy listening to, they know their English well, no doubt about it, but they want to listen to a language which touches their heart. That's what I have noticed in this university. Because I was here in December attending an international conference, and Professor Sheel was also present there that time. Kamleshji also was present there that time. Alvaro was also present that time, there in December. Now, Rajiv, makes a statement in the book somewhere, someplace, which is a very important statement. He says that this is my own lived experience, or Purva Paksha. Purva Paksha I have added in it, but he said it is my own lived experience and my study of American ideas. That is the focus of the book. But while discussing this, then he says, he does it by reversing the gaze. Now what is this reversing the gaze? He has explained it already in his presentation. In simple language, when we were growing, hum jab bade ho rahe the, then we used to talk in a language like, oh, Kalidas, he is the Shakespeare of India. Rajiv is reversing that gaze. He would like us to say that Shakespeare is Kalidas of England. This is the meaning of the reversing the gaze, and he does it brilliantly. He does it brilliantly without any rancor, without any apathy towards the other Western civilization. He doesn't have, he stays in America, staying there for long. He must be having his friends, not so much friendly, sometimes, very much opposed to him. He must be facing a big crowd of people like this. And he interacts with them. And the book shows that he interacts with them very well. Another term he coins, the Dharmic tradition. It's an excellent term coined by him. Dharmic, he's not talking Hinduism. He's not saying Hindu religion. ये सब कुछ नहीं बोल रहे. And dharmic tradition. And dharmic tradition, when he says, he understands the Indian ethos very well because he gives a definition of that dharmic tradition. He says, it is Hinduism see humanity as a manifestation of God. Dharmic tradition see humanity as a manifestation of God. And I think this is the best thing because those who understand Hinduism well or Dharmic tradition of Hindus well, they know that it can never be compared with any kind of a, say, structured religion. It is not structured. He was asking, where should I stand? In Dharmic Indian tradition, where is my place? Because it is so diverse. We just don't know where it could be, where one will place himself in that big tradition. Very difficult. So we have been always trying to assimilate. Kabir is supposed to be a Nirgun-wadi, एक ही ईश्वर पे विश्वास करने वाले, but he would say, Ram ki bahuriya, I am the wife of Rama. Think of Shankaracharya, the Advaita Vedantist, all through. But at the end of his life, he has been writing Ganga Stotram and Jagadhatri Stotram. You know, this is a unique thing of this country. We so easily go on mixing. When Raji was talking about the chaos, you know, and he said that he very disturbed. And I, Mr. Malhotra, I give an example of the railway station inquiry window. Now you go to any country abroad, you will see there is a yellow line. आपको इस yellow line के पीछे खड़ा होना पड़ता है, and one by one जाना पड़ता है. And if you go to Delhi station, New Delhi station of inquiry, you will see the man with a chart जिसमें उसने highlight कर रखा है arrival departure जो late है, big chart. He has a cane in his hand, a microphone, and there are 30 people, minimum 30 people around that window. And जिसने भी जो सवाल पूछा या तो cane से दिखा देगा या microphone से बोल देगा. And absolutely without any problem for him. And he is serving the people. So chaos is within your mind. That what you said is so correct, you know. It is within your mind. And for us, you know, it is not chaos. It is a part of life because we know how to improvise. And we are so quick in improvising the things. वो चाय वाले की बात जो उन्होंने कही, चाय वाला चाय भी दे रहा है, वो भी कर रहा है, वो जो मकान है उधर, वहाँ की औरत क्या कर रही है, वहाँ की लड़कियाँ क्या कर रही है, सब बता रहा है. कोई चीज छोड़ नहीं रहा है. So this the multiple, you know, work which a person does in this country is something very, very unique. Adhyatma Vidya, you know, he is saying embodied knowing. This dharmic tradition is in fact embodied knowing. Embodied, the meaning of embodied, that if there is an abstract term, you give it a body. Embodied knowing. And this embodied knowing, the approaches are yoga, bhakti, they are the different approaches. Embodied approaches, and with the help of these approaches, we come to, our embodied knowing begins. And it begins also, as Rajiv says again, something unique he says, it begins with the sublime idea that humankind is divine. I think this is the crux of this dharmic tradition. We start with the assumption that humankind is divine. And our search is for divine in us, or what we call Atmanam Vidhi. We want to know what the self is. This is what the dharmic tradition is. knowing of the self. And this is the biggest thing of the Upanishad, Atmanam Vidhi. It's a book of comparative religion, no doubt. Western Judeo-Christian faith and Eastern Dharmic tradition. And there is always a danger. When you go on comparing like this, you know, it is generally done with a hidden agenda, intention, to prove the superiority of one's own philosophical or religious tradition, which is generally very, very spurious. वो किया नहीं जाता है. And Indian and Western philosophy are not simply the same sorts of enterprise. Each has its own standards of logical and rational assessment. और दोनों से फायदा पहुंच सकता है. If you compare it properly, these two approaches, philosophical approaches in comparative term, then one tradition may supply viable alternative answers to certain questions. Or as thinkers belonging to one tradition may very well learn from those belonging to other. How not to make certain mistakes and how to avoid certain conceptual models. ये फायदा है इसका. Rajiv does not have any kind of such hidden agenda. At least I could not find in the book any kind of thing, because if you read the last 4 or 5 lines, Professor Kumar, may I have the book? Oh, my book. I've underlined. If you just read the last, of the conclusion, he says, his way of life, it started. I have drawn great inspiration from Gandhi. His life illustrates many key points made in this book. His Purva Paksha of the West was challenging and audacious. He saw the inter-civilizational encounter as the Kurukshetra, where he performed his Swadharma. His use of non-translatables was a strategic way of managing the discourse surrounding his culture. And his way of life demonstrated how difference may be asserted constructively. This is his job. Differences can be assessed constructively, not as opposed to each other. He's presenting the differences, no doubt, but at the same time he's trying to assert it constructively. He said, कोई रास्ता निकल सकता है for the discussion of various religious traditions together. Can we find a way out which can supply all the answers to this problem written world? This is one of the very important things which he has done. And another thing, Mr. Malhotra, I must tell you, I've been reading Mahabharata and Ramayana so deeply and for years together, but I never saw a statement like this. When the king in the coronation taking his oath, तब उसको कहा जाता है, be a garland maker, not a charcoal burner. Be a garland maker. यानी मुख्तलिफ किस्म के जो फूल हैं उनको लेकर आप एक गार्डन बनाइए, हर लोगों को साथ में लेकर आप आगे चलिए, हर तरह की विचारधाराओं को अपने में समाहित करके उसको व्यक्त कीजिए. नॉट ए चारकोल बर्नर, अर्थात बाकी जो विचारधाराएं हैं आपकी सिवाय उनको ध्वस्त मत कीजिए. It's an excellent statement which I learned pretty late in my life, but I thought that there is no end to learning. You remember that story of Socrates when he was in jail and he was to be killed by poison. And one day in the evening, he heard a very nice lyric being sung by another prisoner. So he called the jailer and said, take me to that prisoner. Then the jailer said, why? I want to learn how to sing that lyric. Then the jailer said, but you will be killed in a day or 2 or 3. You will be poisoned. What will you do by learning? Then his reply was, at least I will have the satisfaction that I learned something before my death. Well, that is something unique. So I felt that I learned something, which I did not know before. He uses, many terms which he says, Sanskrit terms, untranslatable. But he infuses new meanings to it also. For example, he uses sapekshata. Sapekshata, which means engagement with reciprocity and mutual respect. Sapeksh ka matlab hai relative. Sapekshata, engagement with reciprocity and mutual respect. The moment I say relative, that every religion has a value, just not Hinduism. Every religion has a value. It is a relative statement which I am making. इसका मतलब ये है कि it means engagement with reciprocity and mutual respect. And sapekshata, he goes on referring to various Western texts which are highly critical of Indian culture, religion or civilization. But as I said, without getting worked up or without any kind of rancor, बिना किसी क्रोध के या ईर्ष्या भाव से कुछ नहीं, सिंपली वो स्टेट करते हैं, आप सबके सामने रखते हैं. He takes sometimes extreme position. That's what I have seen in the book. He takes extreme position, but that's what Mahatma Gandhi did in his Hind Swaraj. Can you deny it? Nobody can deny it. It is a kind of position which I personally feel a great poet or a visionary is capable of taking. Poet Blake once said, all extremes open the gates of heaven. Truth is not revealed through liberal, views, but with extreme views. जब गांधी जी कह रहे हैं हिंद स्वराज में कि रेलवेज को खत्म कर दो, रेलवे में चढ़ना, रेलगाड़ी में चढ़ना बंद कर दो, he is in fact, de-glamorizing the West. That was his main, approach. When he's saying, रेलवे में चढ़ना बंद करो, रेलवे बुरी चीज है. De-glamorizing the West. And when he's saying against hospitals or even against parliament, the parliament is still very, very sterile. Extremely sterile. We have already introduced laws, against say untouchability, against taking this dowry, but everything is continuing in the society. So isko kya kahenge? What will you say to this if Mahatma Gandhi said it is sterile? So I don't go against his extreme steps which he takes, because extreme steps are taken sometimes to present one's own point of view rather forcefully. This book does not make any attempt to subordinate the uniqueness of Indian Dharmic or Western Judeo-Christian religious tradition, either by hegemonic construction. वो इनका उद्देश्य नहीं है, nor he goes for hegemonic construction of one, nor सत्य का जो बिखराव है, जो incoherence of chaotic scattering of flowers है, वो उनका उद्देश्य नहीं है, ना उनका reductionist, homogenized universals उपस्थित करना इनका उद्देश्य है. एक तरफ वैविध्य पे हम जी रहे हैं, विविधता ही दुनिया की सबसे बड़ी चीज है, ये नहीं कह रहे. दूसरी तरफ ये नहीं कह रहे कि there should be just one homogenized structure, ये भी नहीं कह रहे. बीच का एक रास्ता अपनाने की ये कोशिश कर रहे हैं. और ये बात सिर्फ दो दुनिया की बात नहीं है. Though he said that on one side is the West and the other side is the East, but in fact if you go through the book you will find that he is not talking of the East and the West, but he is moving towards the total one. That is the impression at least I got, He's moving towards the total world, which is definitely one, but it is unfortunate that we have divided it as first world and second world and third world. ये बहुत ही unfortunate चीज हुई है. मैंने बताया कि महात्मा गांधी used many Sanskrit terms like ahimsa, satya, swadharma, satyagraha, swaraj, and then he gave meaning, not equivalent. I still remember Professor Bauer, it was 1972 in Sorbonne, and I was attending that international conference there also. Dandekar was present, and that famous Sanskrit scholar who wrote on rasa, Navarasa, the South Indian? Huh? Not the modern one. Indian? I'm forgetting his name. Anyway, they were the top two Sanskritists during that time in 1972, 73, 74. And I presented a paper on Sadharanikaran, and I gave an English equivalent of that. And Kapila Vasai stood up and tore me into pieces. Absolutely tore me into pieces. That this kind of a thing is unbecoming on the part of a scholar whose father was such a great Sanskrit scholar. Without understanding the intricacies of Sanskrit, he is just giving the equivalence. Though it was a different matter that some people took my side, but today when I giving you this story, it means that I accepted Kapilaji, and I accept today Gandhi, and I accept today Rajiv. When they say they are the untranslatable terms, they should not be translated at all. और untranslatable terms को हम उसकी व्याख्या कर सकते हैं, व्याख्या दे सकते हैं, मगर उनको हम translate नहीं कर सकते हैं. ये एक बहुत important बात कही. He says कि it is inter-civilizational encounter. मुझे इत्तफाक है इस word से, encounter. I am not opposed to this word, but I do not like this word because in encounter, kill the other party. And in debates, you show your suicidal ego. But in Samvad is different, dialogues. He says manthan. But manthan is done only by the individual. Samvad is done when there is the other party before you. And Samvad is always done in an atmosphere of reciprocity, mutual recognition, and solidarity. And that kind of a thing which I find in this book also, and I feel very happy that it is a samvad. In this samvad, he is underlying the differences, but at the same time, he is trying to search for an answer. इन्होंने बताया अपने introductory presentation में कि वो जो आंसर है वो एक बीच का आंसर भी वो ढूंढ रहे हैं, differences की बात कर रहे हैं, मगर difference के साथ साथ एक underlying unity होती है. वो सापेक्ष धर्म की बुनियादी बात है, एक underlying unity, और ये दोनों complementary होते हैं. ये जो बात है ये विदेश में समझाना बड़ा मुश्किल है. Videsh never understand because they have a binary, they believe in binary opposite. दो चीजें, they are opposite to each other and they discuss that with the help of binary opposite. So there is clash of civilizations in the West. We do not have any kind of a clash of civilization. We can have clash of opinions. But opinions means where you are having a discussion. तो हमारे देश में जो है वो वैदिक जो वेदांत का एक सिद्धांत है भेदाभेद का, प्रोफेसर त्रिपाठी, भेदाभेद का, जहाँ पर भेद और अभेद दोनों को हम स्वीकार करते हैं और दोनों को जो है डिफरेंस एंड अंडरलाइंग यूनिटी को भी स्वीकार करते हैं. एंड राजीव अगेन is the second thing which I learned from this book. He uses the term bifocal. Bifocal का मतलब ये है कि जहाँ पर डिफरेंस और जो यूनिटी है दोनों इकट्ठे मौजूद हैं. बाइफोकल चश्मा होता है ना, जिसमें एक नजदीक से देखते हैं, दूर का देखते हैं. बिल्कुल उसी तरह से ये दोनों बिल्कुल साथ में हैं, एक के बिना दूसरे की कोई इयत्ता नहीं है. The other has no standing. So the difference and unity, this is the complementariness of the opposite. This is an age-old concept of this country and of China. The complementariness of the opposite. इसको वो लोग समझ नहीं पाते हैं, मगर हमारे देश में जब complementariness of the opposite की बात हम लोग कर रहे हैं, तो मगर उद्देश्य हमारा दूसरा है. उद्देश्य is not to magnify differences. उद्देश्य is to bring unity. वो याद आ रहा है मुझे when Tagore was giving the acceptance speech after his receipt of the Nobel Prize. So in his acceptance speech, he uses a mantra from Upanishad, Yastu Sarvani Bhutani Atman Nevan Pashyati Sarva Bhuteshu Chatmanam Tato Nam Vijigupsade. He who sees all beings in himself and himself in all the beings does not hate anyone and knows the truth. Tagore further, Tagore's philosophy is the infinite wants the finite's intimate comradeship, and the finite wishes to lose itself in the infinite. निराला ने इसी को उठाया है, असीम और सीमा कह के. असीम और सीमा एक दूसरे के साथ इकट्ठे मिलकर जीना चाहते हैं. एक अकेला दूसरे के से अकेला होकर नहीं जीना चाहते. असीम और सीमा दोनों मिलकर जीना चाहते हैं. यहाँ पर जो है डिसॉल्व हो जाता है any kind of difference. This is the main focus of India, and I feel that this is to be understood properly. राजीव जी ने एक जगह मॉडर्निटी की बात कही है, और मॉडर्निटी की बात कहते हुए हम लोग तो जानते हैं कि for us everything which is modern means which is western. हम जानते हैं, हम लोग को ये सिखाया गया था westernization is modernization. उससे हम अभी भी उभर नहीं सके. We have not been able to come out of it. Rajiv ji takes up this point and very solidly, he goes on replying how in China there is a Confucius modernism. मैं राजीव जी को बताना चाहता हूँ कि टैगोर ने जो मॉडर्निटी की व्याख्या की थी, that was that it is freedom of mind, not slavery of taste. And he is doing it, in those heydays of modernity when T.S. Eliot, Ezra Pound, W.B. Yeats, ये सब मॉडर्निटी को लेकर बातचीत कर रहे हैं. उस वक्त he is saying that modernity is freedom of mind and not the slavery of taste. उससे भी एक कदम आगे बढ़ जाते हैं. And in 1924 in Beijing, what he says, my dear students, I am addressing the students, और आप लोगों को मैं कहता हूँ कि जब मैंने वो पढ़ा था 15-20 साल पहले, तो मेरे रोंगटे खड़े हो गए थे कि see, this man is defining modernism in such a way. वो उन्होंने कहा था, the impertinence of material things is extremely old. पहला से पेजिंग में कह रहे 1924 में, the revelation of spirit in man is modern. I am in its side. I am modern. In 1924, he is making a statement like this. I am modern. So we have been a tradition, a very strong tradition of refuting the Western modernism and trying to find out our own ways of understanding our own realities. Modernity doesn't mean anything except that how to understand our own realities. And there was another person, Niharanjan Ray, Professor Tripathi. 2 minutes और बोलना, हाँ? There was another, Professor Tripathi, Niharanjan Ray. He explained modernity in terms of continuity. Okay, India, in India, the modernity comes in the West by rejecting the past. India doesn't reject the past. Past always remains, goes on, it lingers on. It lingers on. Because past does not pass off in India. And so the past and present together, create our reality. And with that reality, ultimately the future is determined. So, Niharanjan Ray ने इसको समझाने के लिए, he used 2 very important terms, Kula and Sheela. Madam, you must be knowing about it. He says Kula is heredity, Kula is tradition, and Sheel is the making of man. Then he said, this making of man is possible, only with the help of tradition, with heredity, tradition. Then he says, but as he creates, as he, goes on making himself, he goes on rejecting many elements of that tradition which he thinks are no more needed, and goes on adding many things which he thinks are now essential. As a result, our tradition never becomes static. Static nahi banta hai. It always remains dynamic. And that explains our modernity. Once I was having a seminar in Dhanyalok in Mysore, C.D. Narasimhaya, and A.K. Ramanujan was present, and he explained this with the help of a story, one excellent story, that there was a philosopher who went to a village, and villager ने उसको इतना बड़ा एक चाकू दिखाया, कहा कि ये हमारे परिवार का चाकू है, 300 वर्ष पुराना। फिर कहा इस 300 वर्षों में उसका जो ब्लेड है, उसको हमने कई दफे बदला है। अफ्रीका उसका जो वुडन हैंडल है, वो भी हमने कई दफे बदला है। But it is the same life. It is the same life. So hence, to understand our modernity, there are a group of people like Tripathi ji, like Vasa and Adhe, like Nirmal Verma, like Rabindranath Tagore, like महात्मा गांधी, ये सब लोग जो है हमारी मॉडर्निटी को डिफाइन कर रहे हैं अपने अपने वे से। लास्टली बहुत कुछ रह गया, पूर्व पक्ष की बात मैं नहीं कर पाया। It is a very important term. Purva Paksha doesn't mean anything. He uses it in several meanings. One of the meanings of Purva Paksha is your tradition. Is your tradition, Purva Paksha. और इस ट्रेडिशन को लेकर वो बात करते हैं और मैं लास्ट में पहुंचता हूँ, बहुत कुछ छूट जा रहा है इसमें, doesn't matter. I will give you, Mr. Malhotra, my presentation to you in case it is of any value to you. In conclusion, may I say, let me read it out, it will take less time. May I say that in the 70s of the last century, I had the opportunity to read The Speaking Tree by R. Lanoy. Some 30, 40 years ago I read that book, The Speaking Tree. Now after a gap of almost 40 years, I had a good fortune to go through another seminal book on Hindu dharmic tradition, Being Indifferent by Rajiv Malhotra. Apparently it looks like a book where the Judeo-Christian tradition is critiqued with the help of an Indian dharmic perspective. But in the process, many are prone to think that Rajiv takes a slanted position and favors the dharmic tradition and does not take the role of a critical insider, जो गांधी जी ने लिया था. Rajiv no doubt does not lay bare the detrimental aspects of the dharmic tradition and gives any proposal as how to change it from within by creating new formulations, which Gandhi did. Rajiv draws great inspiration from Gandhi, but does not, like Gandhi, modify, adapt and reconstruct the tradition to create better insights. But I feel Rajiv's objective was just to show the differences between two religious traditions and challenge the Western notion of universalism. Universalism का जो Western notion है, I could not tell you, ladies and gentlemen, Tagore, stoutly, opposed to this whole concept of Western universalism, so much so that African writer Chinua Achebe goes even to extreme to say that if I can, I will take this word universal from the dictionary, because anything which is Western is universal and anything which we do is we are particular. Tagore wrote a very pathetic poem on Africa. और उस अफ्रीका में he was very sarcastic कि जब हजारों लोग मर रहे हैं, उस वक्त अफ्रीका में चर्च में बेल बजाए जा रहे हैं, बच्चों को गोद में लिए माँ सैर करने निकल रहे हैं और कवि कविताएं पढ़ रहे हैं जब हजारों लोग मर रहे हैं. It was a sarcastic, poem written to explain that how the West was behaving during the colonial time. In his long stay in America, I can assume he had to face lots of opposition, and almost like Raja Rammohun Roy objected about the ways of missionaries, their abusive language and support of the government in their activities. Roy, in his debate, said that truth and virtue do not belong to wealth and power, and then spoke of biblical criticism by Unitarians and free thinkers, and hit hard at the doctrine of Trinity, and said, if miracles are to be accepted, then how can native miracles of great saints be rejected? No doubt the dialogue got clouded by racial superiority. In fact, it was more an encounter than a dialogue. It is true, there are ample signs of cultural conflicts between the traditional East and the West, as well as among the three Abrahamic traditions, and hence it has become all the more necessary to respond with renowned efforts to counter the clash of civilizations with a dialogue among civilization. While the very idea of a clash of civilization is wrong, a civilization of clashes is today's reality. That what makes dialogue among cultures and people an urgent matter of international politics and global ethics. The Taittiriya Upanishad explains that when one sees difference, even to the smallest degree, there arises fear in mind. With fear you cannot have a dialogue. So long as there is another, there is finitude, the condition of being finite, which creates fear. When the notion of difference is transcended by the vision of underlying unity, there is fearlessness. But in facing a position where the other is completely obliterated, no dialogue is possible in that kind of a state of transcendentalism. Rajiv Malhotra, by highlighting the differences, in fact, created a space to demonstrate that differences can be asserted constructively to retrieve, rediscover, and redefine elements of culture in a creative way by a return of pride in one's roots while looking ahead. Namaskar.